Welcome to World Gone Weird, discussing what the heck is going on in the world today. So, things seem to be continuing to be things, right?
Yeah, things is a good way to put it. Feels like every time we get a handle on one mess, another one pops up. It's like whack-a-mole but with global crises.
I know it's intense, but we have to look for the glimmers of hope too. It can't all be bad, right? Like the ceasefire in Gaza, that's got to be a positive step, even if it's just temporary.
Oh, yeah, a temporary pause in the regularly scheduled apocalypse. I'm sure everyone's just going to sit around, hold hands, and sing Kumbaya. Give it a week and we'll be right back to shelling each other.
Well, the ceasefire is, at least from a purely pragmatic standpoint, a chance to assess the damage and hopefully find ways to de-escalate further. I mean, the sheer loss of life, it's staggering. And the ongoing humanitarian crisis is, frankly, unacceptable. We're talking tens of thousands of dead, a huge percentage of them women and children.
But is it really a ceasefire, or just a temporary tactical pause? I mean, we've seen this movie before. Both sides regroup, rearm, and it's back to the same old song and dance, right? And it's not like we're getting any truth from the media about it. They all have agendas. No.
I think it's important that the mediators, Qatar and the US, were able to get this far. It's a huge amount of effort just to get to the point of a ceasefire. You've got to start somewhere, and hopefully this leads to longer-term peace talks. I mean, it's got to be better than what's been happening, right? And getting some of the hostages out, that's a win, even if it is just a portion.
Oh, yeah, it's a total win for the people getting released. For the rest of us, well, we just get another news cycle of finger pointing and righteous indignation. Maybe they'll do a follow-up story with the family. How is life now that our son is no longer a hostage? It will be a feel-good story before the next bomb goes off. I need more coffee.
See, and that's the thing, right? It's not just about this one ceasefire, it's about the broader geopolitical mess. The article mentions that there are far-right ministers in Israel who are threatening to quit if the deal goes through. Like, that kind of internal instability, how does that lead to any kind of sustainable solution? It's like a house built on sand.
Exactly. And you've got external influences too. You see the US and Qatar being mediators here, but what about the other players? The ones arming and funding these conflicts in the shadows. I'm not so sure about these peace talks either. It's probably just a bunch of virtue signaling while they prepare for the next round.
But even just a temporary pause allows for some humanitarian aid to get in. That alone is a major victory for the innocent people caught in the middle. You have to remember they're dealing with a humanitarian catastrophe. Food, water, medicine, basic necessities, it all matters. It allows aid groups to be able to even just operate.
Yeah, the aid, which is probably just going to get sold on the black market, right? Or stockpiled by whoever is in charge of the aid distribution. Gotta love a good humanitarian crisis. It's a growth industry.
That cynicism, it's exhausting. And while you are somewhat right about the corruption, we can't ignore the people that will undoubtedly benefit from it. Look, these situations are always messy, they're complex. But there are real, tangible benefits for people on the ground when ceasefires happen, even if they are temporary. And, scientifically, every time there's a break from violence, the brain has a chance to heal and maybe, just maybe, break that cycle.
Healing? That's a lot of faith in humanity I'm not sure I share. I see endless cycles of aggression, tribalism, and exploitation. I mean, look at history. It's just a repeat of the same terrible patterns. I'm not sure that a ceasefire is going to change thousands of years of human nature.
I think we need to believe in the possibility of change. We have to, or what's the alternative? Despair. Look, every step we take to resolve conflicts, no matter how small, is worth it. It's a step forward to a better world. And even the process of a ceasefire, as messy as it is, forces people to the negotiating table and to start thinking beyond the conflict. That's got to be good, right?
Yeah, it's great. It's a perfect scenario. Everyone is going to learn to love each other. We can all sing Kumbaya around a campfire. That's going to fix everything. I'm going to go order more takeout.
All right. We're all jaded, I get it. Let's shift gears for a second. The other big piece of news is Trump's return to the White House and his potential impact on global health. They're talking about everything from pulling out of the WHO again, to reinstating and expanding the Mexico City policy, possibly cuts to PEPFAR, and even his opposition to a pandemic treaty. I mean, it's a lot.
Yeah, and it's not surprising. I mean, we all saw this coming. He is predictably unpredictable. I'm sure he'll do what no one expects to do, and that's exactly what everyone is expecting. It's all a show, right? He likes to make waves, and international relations is as good as any place to make those waves. Pulling out of the WHO again, that sounds right on brand for him.
Oh yeah, devastating. I'm sure the WHO will be just devastated. I'm sure they'll start a charity to save themselves and we can all donate to it. It's just going to be a lot of people scrambling for money and resources. Business as usual. It'll be good for the economy for some of us. And PEPFAR. Honestly, I barely remember what that is. I just remember the guy who runs it on TV a lot.
But is it really that crucial, or just another bureaucratic boondoggle, ripe with waste and corruption? I mean, wasn't Trump right about the WHO being slow to act during COVID and essentially being influenced by China? And isn't it a bit ridiculous that the US gives the most money and yet can't control it? I'm sure that's not an issue with the same problem occurring in other areas of the UN. But, from a certain viewpoint, isn't that a good thing? Shouldn't we be prioritizing maternal health and family planning over abortion, especially in developing countries? It feels like that's where they could really use some help and education, instead of focusing on something that can become quite controversial. And, maybe, that can help in the long run with population control. I mean, there's always that angle to look at it too.
Yeah, it's going to lead to a bunch of hand-wringing and arguing over what is the right thing to do. Meanwhile, people will die, one way or the other. It will be a big mess, no doubt. More arguments, more debate. And I am here for it. I am here for it.
Well, maybe because it's become this huge bureaucracy that is outdated. Maybe it needs to be streamlined, or maybe there are better ways to help. And maybe the whole thing has been taken over by organizations that aren't focused on the actual disease, but on something else. I mean, the article does mention that, right? I can see why there would be those concerns. And they do make a point about local organizations, do they not? Do make a point about local organizations, do they not? But isn't that valid? I mean, if an international body can dictate health policies on U.S. soil, that doesn't sit right. It would be giving up some of our autonomy. Isn't there some argument about the possibility of intellectual property for pharmaceutical companies too? That makes some sense to me as well. I'm sure they don't want to give away how they make their medicines.
Yeah, experts, international collaboration, all great ideas that sound amazing and will fail miserably because of human nature. It's all just one big, glorious train wreck, and I get to watch it. Just like I am sure everyone is going to see what will happen with all of these new cuts and changes from the new president. I bet the internet will be a fun place to be. Oh yeah, the pharmaceutical companies are so sad. I feel bad for them, said no one ever. And it's not like those companies aren't going to lobby to make sure they get every cent they can. And even with the lower prices, I'm sure there will be other issues with medications and availability. I can guarantee that. It's always something.
See, the thing is, these drug price negotiations are actually a good example of government intervention that can work. And the law requires these companies to participate, so it's not like they have a choice. We are talking about drugs that are not brand new, that do not have competition from generic products. So it is not like these companies are out of other options to make money. It really is a public good to bring these down to affordable levels, especially for the elderly who are on fixed incomes. I guess that's the crux of it all, isn't it? There are so many intersecting forces with so many different angles of potential problems. You have international conflicts, political instability, healthcare access, potential environmental disasters, and then all these smaller things that impact daily life, and it is just all so much to process and deal with.